Going in depth today, we want to talk some more about what happened at the Utah Jazz game on Wednesday when 3 fans were ejected for remarks with clearly racist overtones. Here's some of what makes this feel like more than just one moment at a game. On May 16th, members of the Chabad Lubavitch Synagogue in Salt Lake found a swastika etched into their window. On May 18th, someone spray-painted anti-Asian slurs on 2 cars in downtown Salt Lake City. On May 25th, last Tuesday, a special ed teacher who is black found her car burglarized and a note left behind with a racial slur. And NBA fans will remember, and when they hear this on national news, they are going to remember that this same kind of thing happened at a Jazz game, March 11th, 2019. And that is when a fan was banned from Vivint Smart Home Arena for shouting racist comments at then Oklahoma, now Washington Wizards star Russell Westbrook. Some real points of concern here, and so we want to go in depth talking with Dr. Darius Bost, who is an associate professor of ethnic studies and the co-editor of the Frontiers magazine on gender studies at the University of Utah. I understand, by the way, that you are on a sabbatical or leave, so we're so lucky that you are willing to take some time out and talk with us. So grateful for that. And let me begin by just asking, when you read about this happening at a Jazz game, their star players' family being taunted in clearly racist ways. What was your reaction?
Yeah, my reaction is, well, first of all, thank you for having me. And my reaction is, why is it that anger about the game often turns into racial animus? And I wondered, when are we going to have a conversation about athletes, particularly Black athletes, being valued for their athletic prowess, but also still devalued because of their identities.
And I think I hope that you can help us think through a little bit. We Utahns, we have a very small Black minority in Utah, and so I always wonder if when things like this happen, is there a reason that these things are happening in Utah? I mean, is it, and I don't know if you can answer that or just even reflect on the question.
Yes. Well, one of the things that I asked immediately is what and who is fueling these incidents of sort of racial animus, but also hate crimes largely. I mean, I think that we have to look to our larger political and social climate right now, and the racial divisions within our social climate that I think have been fueled by, the former administration, presidential administration, but also some of the concerns and questions happening in Utah, specifically around teaching race and racism in schools.
Yeah. I listen to those conversations, and I hear people talk about how, well, when you focus on race, you're just focusing on inequality and pitting people against each other. But I don't know. I grew up in Utah, and you grow up, especially outside of Salt Lake City, and you have 1 or 2 Black students in a school that has 500 students, and that experience has to be isolating, and it is different, and it deserves attention, it seems to me. And I wonder, how do we talk past that notion that we want equity, we want equality, and yet that doesn't necessarily mean that we ignore race?
Yeah, I think we have to sort of ask the question of who is harmed when we don't talk about race. And this is, part of my concern with the, recent efforts to ban critical race theory in Utah schools, because those 2 students who are the minorities, their experiences are going to be shaped by the sort of not being able to see themselves in the curriculum, but also not educating majority students about race and racism and how it can reinforce racial hierarchies. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important for us to continue the conversation about race and not to leave the onus on racial minorities to do that work.
So address that as if I'm someone who's saying to you, I'm not racist. I don't see color. Imagine that I'm the person who's saying that, taking that approach and saying we should all just be equal and stop talking as if there's bad racist stuff in America. Talk to me as that person. How do you say that? No, that's not what we're doing.
Yes, one of the things that I teach about in the classroom is that one can have, not have any sort of malicious intent, but their words and their actions can still do harm. And we have to think about how, this is why sort of conversations about white privilege are important, because right, one's experience is always connected to another person's experience. Yeah. So while I would say, you may not have racist intent, we still need to question how does your rhetoric, how do your actions still shape the lives of those who might be rendered vulnerable by your words and your actions. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say when we started looking into this morning, we're focusing on mental health a lot here at Fox 13, and so I was looking at some census survey data, and I showed you a chart that I can show our viewers real quickly. But what this shows is people who reported, and this was just in the last month, that in the last 7 days when they were asked if they felt down, depressed, or hopeless. And what this is how much more they felt this way in Utah than the same group of people nationally. So Hispanics and Latinos in Utah, 35% more likely to feel depressed. White Utahns, almost 4% less likely. Black Utahns, 15% more likely to be feeling depressed, and Asians also more likely to be feeling depressed. I wonder, I don't know what to necessarily make of that, but there's a clear distinction there, and these are surveys with a huge number of respondents, so they get a pretty good idea of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, just this past summer, I was really heartened by the way that, there was a broad coalition of activism around police killings of racial minorities, as well as a changing national consensus around those issues. But this study is really alarming to me, because my concern is that, or my question is, why are sort of majority Americans not outraged by these events, right? And does that sort of lack of concern reinforce the very same concern that activists have been raising, which is that Black lives and Asian American lives don't matter? And so. Yes.
Oh, we're out of time. I've gone over time because I really I appreciate talking to you. Not to close this off by sounding too Pollyannish, but the fans around this incident reported, some of the fans, the white jazz fans who were there, were reporting the people who were doing this and turning them in and embracing this family, and I hope that shows the best of us and how we can reach out. So, Dr. Bost, thank you.
Thank you.
Darius Bost from the University of Utah.